All right, so I am going to just demo a very simple little basic class, and we are going to create it above our program class, and we're going to call it pet. So we'll do public class pets. We'll do our opening and our closing curly braces. And for this class, I'm going to show you private fields. And private fields are only accessible from inside the pet class. And so we'll do a string for the name. And we'll do a string for the type of pet. And just we can do an integer for the age, and then maybe we want to know what color they are, although that probably doesn't matter, but, or no, we'll do a Boolean. Um, are they furry? And vaccinated is a good one, so we'll do another one for vaccinated. All right, so we got 5 fields in this class. So the fields are where we're going to store information. And before we can put information in, we need to make sure that the values are valid. And that is where initializing the fields comes into play. Because when we create a class object, it goes out into memory and, you know, uh, memory is not erased after it's used. It's released, and so there is data there. And so name may end up somewhere in memory where there's numbers and different things, not necessarily text. And age may end up somewhere in memory where there's text instead of numbers. So we have to initialize things to make sure that they have valid values in them when we start the program. And that is what a constructor does. So the constructor has the same name as the class, okay? And there's no parameters. So there's nothing that we pass inside the parentheses, and we don't return any data. So the only purpose of the constructor is to put blanks and zeros into those fields as starting values. Okay, and so we take all of our field names, and actually these should be capitalized. So I'm going to fix that. We got to go with standard conventions. And we'll fix it down here. But what we're doing to each of the fields is if it's a text field, we're just putting string.empty into it. And if it's a number, we're putting in a 0. And for the Booleans, we're setting them to false. Okay, and so this is the default constructor. And how that one is used is when you first create a class object. So when we say pets, and pets is the class, and it kind of acts like our data type. This is where we are creating a class object. And I'm going to call the object my pet. And I'm going to set that equal to new. And new is the keyword for creating a class object. And I'm going to set it to new pets. So what happens when I create this little my pet object and I set it to new pets? It automatically puts my pets in heap memory. And it creates these fields, okay, and it runs through this constructor, and it's assigning the strings empty and age 0 and furry and vaccinated are false. Okay. So that's kind of how it works. And another type of constructor that you can create is called a parameterized constructor. So what if we want to create a pet? We'll call this one your pet. But we want to be able to pass the data that we want in name, type, age, furry, and vaccinated. We want to pass that as parameters. Okay, so name, Rocco, type, let's see, parrot, age, 20, furry, it's got feathers. I'm gonna say false. Vaccinated, true. Okay. So if we want to do something like this, what we want is for the object to be created. Okay, so it's going to reserve space over in heap memory. And instead of assigning string empty and 0 and false, we want it to assign these values. So we need what's called a parameterized constructor. And for the parameterized constructor, the order matters. Okay? Because if this is the order that I'm going to pass the data, that's the same order that I need to bring it in. Okay? And it's not unusual to use, the same variable names, but lowercase. So you can see these are all uppercase with an underscore. These are all lowercase. And so then we can just do these assignment statements. Okay. And actually, because I sent true and false, you don't really have to convert to Boolean. We can just put in furry. Or we should be able to. Maybe it wants us to. Oh, see, sometimes you really have to check what Copilot is wanting to put in. Because sometimes it creates extra steps that are really unnecessary. Okay, so these two should be Boolean. Okay, and then we can just do direct assignment statements. Oops. And here I did not create them as Boolean, so let me fix this. All right, so now it should all match up. Bool, bool. Now it's probably got to be lowercase. There we go. All right, so now we've got two objects. We've got my pet and your pet. And the first one is going to go through this little default constructor, and it's going to do that when it creates the object. And the second one is going to go through this parameterized constructor when it creates the object. Okay, so then how do we get data into the first one? Because these are private, we have to use get and set methods. Okay, and so for each one of our private fields, we create a public method. Of course, you got to spell it right. And the set methods are going to receive the data. So they're going to have a parameter, but they don't return anything. the get methods are going to retrieve what is stored. Okay, so for the first one, we've got get name. It's going to return a string because that's our data type. So all we're going to say is return name. Okay, then we'll do the matching set for that. And the set method has a parameter of name, which it is assigning, and it's not going to return anything. So we basically need the same kind of little setup for all of them. And the data types might be a little bit different, but we can fix that. So we've got get and set, and we had type. So we'll change this to type, change this to type. Let me copy that. And type is a string, so that is really the only thing we have to change. Okay, so we've got get type or returning type. Here we've got set type. We're passing in the type, assigning it, and we're not returning anything. Then we've got age. Age is an integer. So this is going to be get age. And this is going to be set age. And it's returning an integer, because that's the data type. And the field is called age. And that's where the data is being stored. For set age, the parameter coming in is an integer. I'm going to call it age. And then we're going to take that value and we're just going to assign it to our private field. And the next two are Boolean, but they're going to kind of work the same way. So again, I can copy and paste. And so this one is going to be called get furry. And it's going to return furry, which is a Boolean. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and copy that and paste it right in here because these next two are both Boolean. So we've got get furry, and then we've got set furry. Okay, and so we're going to call it furry. And we're going to take that furry value that was passed in the parameter and set it to our private field. And the last one is vaccinated. And so we've got return vaccinated. Hopefully I'm spelling it right. Where is it? Two C's. Oh, goodness. Okay. I'll fix this up here. All right. Get vaccinated. So we're returning vaccinated. And then we need set vaccinated. And that's going to be passed a Boolean value. We're calling it vaccinated. And we're going to place it into our private field. Okay. So now that we've got these get and set, we can now place values into my pet using the set methods. And so let's see. And then we'll do another one, my pet dot set type. Dog is fine. I'll do my pet set furry true is fine, and set vaccinated true is fine. So at this point, my pet now has real values, and so does your pet. So we want to display those values back. And we do not have a print method. Okay, sometimes classes will have their own print method, but this one doesn't. So we have to use the get methods to retrieve the data. Okay, so we can say console.writeLine. And then we can just say name. And I'm going to use string interpolation on this. So we'll put a little $sign in here. And I'm going to say get name. Oops, got to do the object first. So the reason you need the object when you call these methods is because the object is what's storing the data. So my pet has these values associated with it. And so when my pet calls get name, it can grab the name that is stored with my pet. Okay? That's why you have to have the object calling the method. And the type is going to be my pet dot get type. Okay, and let's just say that's all we want. And then if we wanted to print out your pet, we can do the same thing, but now we have to change the object because your pet is storing Rocco Parrot 20 false and true. And that's the data we want to see. Okay, and so now if we run this, you can see that we've got that data. So this is private fields. Now, public fields are simpler than private fields because with public fields, other classes can access them directly. So if we change these to public, and that is why all your methods are pretty much public because you want other classes to be able to access them. If the methods aren't public, nobody can use them. All right, so if we do public, we still, well, we're going to follow proper conventions and get rid of the underscore, but we still need the constructor, okay? Because we still need to put valid starting values into these fields. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and keep this parameterized constructor because we want to allow them to create the object and pass the data. It's just a very quick way of populating an object with data. So we want to allow them to do that. What we don't need are the get and set methods. So we can just get rid of all of those. Okay, and this is our whole entire class. Okay, we basically need the constructors to ensure that you have valid data, in the fields when you create them. And that's pretty much it. You can directly access those fields from the main method. So I can just use my pet.name equals Cooper. My pet.type equals dog. my pet.age equals 3. My pet.furry equals true. And my pet.vaccinated equals true. Okay, and I can keep the parameterized constructor just as it is. But then to retrieve the data, I no longer need the get methods. So I can just use the object dot field. And again, the reason that I can do this is because they are public fields. And public fields can be accessed by any class. So we're currently in the program class, and those fields are defined in the pet class. But you can be in any class and access these fields, which is why we can directly access them in our program class. Okay? And if we run this, it's basically going to look the same as it did before. It's just we are accessing the data completely different. Okay, so hopefully this made sense and helped clarify things for you.